When it comes to the world of personal finance and self-help, especially in the YouTube community, you will often see a lot of different YouTubers, and we're talking about very famous YouTubers, which you can comment down below which ones, but I'm not going to put any particular names in case I get, fired or someone gets at me for it. But you will see so many YouTubers promote this idea which they call the hustle culture. But in today's video, what I really want to do is to take a little bit of a look on the other side that less people talk about, and is really exploring the idea about why this hustle culture can actually be considered a very toxic thing that should actually be avoided. Obviously, it depends on your particular life situation. Like, for example, if you are in a case of emergency, then there may be a urgent need to have to hustle all day to be able to make it out of a particular situation. But for the average person, when it comes to just working hard and trying to live life, hustle culture can actually be a very toxic thing that should actually be avoided, or certainly be reconsidered whether or not it's going to be for the average person to go through. So with that being said, let's just get right to this video about today's video, which is really about why hustle culture is really toxic, and why you should really reconsider if you are someone that's going to enter into the hustle culture phase of your particular life. So that being said, before we start, like, comment, subscribe, or watch to the end to decide, and let's get started. So the first reason why hustle culture can be something that's actually a lot more toxic than people realize is simply put because as human beings, hustle culture is just simply put not a very sustainable mindset to have for the average person. The reality is that as human beings, we only have so much energy, we only have so much time in our lives, and so especially if you are someone that's starting to age and get into older, an older age, we only have so much energy that we can output on a regular basis. So as human beings, we do need rest. We do need time to recover. And so if you are someone that's just hustling every single day and starting to neglect a lot of other areas of life, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, then it might be time to reconsider, because this particular mindset of constantly working hard all day without resting, it is just not a very sustainable mindset to have, and can simply put lead to just a lot of burnout for the average person. People will tire out, people will not have the endurance to be able to sustain. That's why it's called unsustainable, and there's just a lot of problems that can come from it, which is probably a great segue to the next point that I really want to talk about, why hustle culture is toxic, and is really just because of a lot of the unnecessary sacrifices that you have to make to live out hustle culture. For many people, when it comes to living out hustle culture, they talk a lot about why it's so important to make these sacrifices in order to achieve success. But what they don't explore and realize is that sometimes these sacrifices may not actually necessarily be worth making, especially if they're actually very important sacrifices to make, or in this case to not make, because again, it's not necessary. And so what are some examples of this is that there are so many people in the hustle culture game that will talk about neglecting sleep, neglecting a proper diet, neglecting a healthy lifestyle, neglecting your social life, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, neglecting so many other areas of life in order to achieve success. But the problem is with this particular mindset and thinking is that there is in many cases so much more to life than your status, than the amount of money you make. It's obviously important, you have to make money, it's good to have a high status, and it's good to be able to achieve things, but you really have to find that balance. And because when you are in a case where you are making so many unnecessary sacrifices, then you are literally not only burning out yourself, just like mentioned, but you are making these sacrifices that you don't necessarily have to make to achieve success. There's a lot of sacrifices that you may have to make, but there's also a lot of sacrifices that are very extreme. If you end up giving up your sleep and giving up, a healthy diet, you may end up getting sick. And if you end up getting sick or being not fully functional because of the lack of sleep, that's not really going to do much favors for you. And so that is just one of those things to really be able to consider when it comes to undergoing the hustle culture, which is probably the next point to make. But probably is going to lead on to another big sacrifice and to really explore deeply about why hustle culture is so toxic is going to be because of the amount of people that engage in hustle culture but not really realize how much it can end up becoming social isolation. And in other words, what I'm really trying to get at is chronic loneliness. And this is a very, very depressing thing to really have to think about, but it's the reality of a lot of people that go through that. A lot of times, and there's this quote that goes something like, it's lonely at the top. I think there's also a song that goes like, it's lonely at the top, and whatever you do, you always gotta watch the people, right? It's not a very famous song, but I don't remember where it's from. But the idea really is that there is a lot of truth to it. You know, for a lot of people, in order to achieve that success, so say for example you want to become a massive celebrity, right? You want to achieve worldwide fame. A lot of times it can be really, really lonely at the top because the amount of work that you have to do to be able to get there is very, very extreme. And so the thing is that at the end of the day, as human beings, we need social interaction. At least for the average person, we need social interaction to stay sane, especially if you are an extrovert. But even if you happen to be an introvert, it's still important to be able to socialize with people, to talk to people, build up your relationships. And there was a lot of study and research that suggested that in many, many cases, it's the people that have strong relationships, more so than the people that have lots of money in their lives, that actually ultimately end up the happiest when it comes to collectively looking back throughout the years of their life. Of course, this is one of those things you can feel free to comment down your thoughts below, because it is really interesting to hear from you guys what you guys think about this. But that's just what a lot of research and studies have said. It's that about how important it is to maintain social relationships so that you can share and celebrate these successes, celebrate these milestones, celebrate the things that you can do. And I think it's really important to notice is that even if you are someone that is so success driven that you like just are trying to strive and take as much as you possibly can, I think at the end of the day, it is still very, very important to work on your social relationships, because many of the most biggest things and human achievements that have been achieved in our life, it is very rare it was ever done by one person. Many of the greatest things that people achieved, or the greatest inventions and things that were created, were often created by a team of people. So it is very, very difficult, because at the end of the day, we all have our strengths and we all have our weaknesses. And that is why teamwork is so important, so we can complement these strengths and weaknesses to be able to do and build incredibleness and greatness. But the idea really behind this is that because if you are someone that's trying to strive for that success, then it's also important to build these solid relationships, because these are relationships that can help you get there. There is a lot of truth to the quote when they say it's often who you know more than what you know that will get you farther, because when you know the right people, they can help guide you towards where you have to go, and they can help and support you in your journey to go to wherever you are trying to go. And that's why I think even if your goal was to achieve worldwide success, networking, relationship building, all of these things, that is something that should really, really be considered. That is very, very important, that I see so many people neglect and end up isolating themselves because of this toxic idea of hustle culture, this toxic idea of monk mode, focusing, closing the doors, and just spending your time studying all day in your desk and all that, work, just to potentially lead to a lot of burnout and, again, unnecessary sacrifices. And probably the last thing that I really, really want to share in terms of why hustle culture is so toxic for the average person is going to really, really be focused on the amount of, and this one's a very specific set of circumstances, but it's going to be especially if you are hustling towards something that you are not necessarily even excited about. And we see this a lot of times where people will hustle at their jobs, they will hustle towards their career, they will hustle in class, they will hustle in school, they will hustle to get that degree. But in some cases, they may be hustling towards something that the reason why they are hustling towards that particular something is not even necessarily because they care about that particular something deep down inside, but it's more because they feel pressured, because they care about the opinions of others and what they will think about them if they are able to achieve that particular something, if they are able to get that promotion, if they are able to get those A's, those high grades, get that degree. So this one is really, really important, is because if you are someone that is hustling towards something that you don't even necessarily care about, the reality is that in whatever we do in life, success is never a guarantee. That's just the reality. You can do everything right on your side and still have things sadly fall apart. You know, you try so hard and you got so far, but in the end, it doesn't even matter. And there's a lot of truth to that, you know, because the idea really behind this one is that if you are hustling towards something that you don't care about particularly, it may be time to really reconsider where you are putting your energy, your time, and your focus towards, because these are things that you may have to really consider if it's whether or not it's truly actually worth it to engage in hustle culture towards these particular goals and things that you are currently going towards. Of course, this one is a little bit more subjective because I do know obviously this depends on, you know, you as a person, and what you're looking towards, because some people may be striving for goals that they genuinely really do care about, but then you have people that are striving for goals that are made because of external pressure, because other people are making these goals for them. That is when you should really reconsider if it's really worth it to go through hustle culture. But of course, this video is really just about sharing my thoughts about why hustle culture can actually be a very toxic idea for the average person. Of course, feel free to share your particular thoughts down below, because this is pretty much what I really wanted to cover in today's video. So that being said, if you guys made it to the end, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, stay safe, stay well. Feel free to leave a comment, like, subscribe, hit the bell, and hope to see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much again.